All right, so where we left off, I was showing you how I was going to set up my shot, and I have it here with a banner draping from a wall onto a crate, and then that crate or that elevation allows me to shoot up at it as well as just across it and down at it. And that white will give me frames that don't have a clear edge in them, from horizontal to vertical. So you don't want that corner of the room with your object. You just want maybe a slight gradation as it spills. And so then your object will just float in that white space and cast shadows where it needs to. So then I put my object there, and using my sketches, that I've done before I've gotten any exposures, I know what I'm going for. And then I'm going to explore different aspects within these that I don't have sketches as well, once I have it set up. And then I have to think about lighting. And in this sketch, I actually thought of lighting like the shadow should be this way. So I'm going to set up a key light on this side. So if we're looking at this setup from the front, here's my object. Here's the background kind of folding under. I'm going to have a key light here, hitting it. And then the shadow is going to pull across like that. And so then I'm going to be shooting down at it like this, trying to capture it, framing it in this way to match my composition. I'll do that in red. Now the only thing I want to be careful of, so that's the composition I might be trying to match, and that's what I did with my first exposures, right there. So what I want to be careful of is that I don't have harsh lighting. So I want to make sure I either diffuse it, and I have umbrellas that I can diffuse it with, make the light softer, show more of those mid-ranges, or I can reflect it. I can turn the light backwards on itself and shoot into a reflector like an umbrella and let the light be even more diffused that way and reflected. And if it's the lighting is too harsh, so if it looks like too dark on one side and too harsh on the other side, too bright and blasted out, then I might need to add a reflector over here to get some light on this side, or even a secondary light source that can be either diffused or reflected, but not as strong. So this is my primary light source. All right, so hopefully that makes some sense to you. Now, using those sketches, using that setup, using this object, I got my exposures. And usually I'll spend an hour to 2 hours getting exposures, really playing with lighting, playing with the arrangement until I'm just in love with my subject matter. I've discovered new things about it. And I don't know that that's quite happened with this. You'll notice how all of my exposures, I'm just going to select them all, open them up right from my memory card in preview before I decide which ones to actually bring into my computer. Just shrink it enough so I can see the desktop. And at this point, I can kind of abandon my sketches, though I have a whole set of them that are trying to match this setup, and a whole bunch of them then, well, not as many, that are trying to match this setup with different variations. And then some variations on my own from different angles, different ways. Okay, notice all of them look pretty warm. And that's because of the fluorescent light in this room and the incandescent lights that I'm using to shoot with. These aren't full spectrum flashes, but color can be processed out. And notice that some of them might show a little bit off of that white background. So if I wanted to use that shot, I would have to process that out. But remember, we're not allowed to crop for this project. And sometimes that happens. It happens to professionals all the time because your viewfinder doesn't quite show you the full parameters of your frame. It will hide little things. Okay. Now all of these shots, I used a low f-stop around 4, and I focused at particular parts of the object. You know, either focused on the scratches or focused on the cracks in the base, like this one does. And so there are focus pulls there, going from out of focus to in focus to out of focus, that are interesting. Okay, so now I'm just looking for the ones I think have the most potential. And in some ways, I use these frames here, the little tiny frames, to tell which compositions are most interesting. So the warmth of these is fairly distracting versus these, which I just had less light overall. And I'll use the close-ups to judge the focus. So let's see. I like the general composition of this, but I don't like how the shape is just so clunky. I don't see kind of the elegance of the shape from this point of view. Same thing there. Shape looks a little clunky, though the focus is interesting. That one, I like the focus a lot. The shape's a little bit more elegant. But it's a little too, like, in your face, front and center. But of that positioning of the object, I think maybe that's the strongest one. So maybe I'll bring that one over as an option. Now for this, which matches this sketch, that composition's pretty much right on with my sketch. I like how you can't really tell what you're looking at, and yet there's a lot of complexity to the shape and to the edges. And I like the focus pull, which is focused on the cracks here and the ear here. There's a little bit soft focus in the foreground and in the background. So yeah, that one looks pretty good. This one, more extreme, not so much. Let's see, that one. Do I like that one or that one? I think that focus pull is a little too strong, maybe. It's more on the back of the object, less on the front of it. I do like the shape, though. So here's another one. And yeah, that's kind of a nice mix. So I'd say that's a contender. That one, I think the shape is just too straightforward. I like that this, it almost looks like a piece of petrified wood or something. Okay, now I guess I should get at least one that works for the other sketch. And so these are all just too flat profile. They look more like this sketch than that one. That's getting closer to this sketch. The focus is pretty good. It's better to have too much focus than too little. So this one, even though I like it, I feel like it's so out of focus at the edges compared to this one that it doesn't give me a lot of options. So I'm going to say this one's stronger overall. And this one's pretty good. I kind of like the angle a little bit more. I think it occupies those third lines maybe a little bit better than that one. So I think, let's see, what are some of the differences? Just different areas of focus. This is what photo editors do. Now this one has harsher lighting. It doesn't have any of the reflected light. And And this is when I soften the lighting a little bit. So of those, that was my first exposure. You see how graded the background gets. It might be even a little distracting, though I kind of like the strength of it. I think this one is my strongest candidate. Yeah, so I'll pull that one over. So I have 4. Now I can close my memory card. Don't need that anymore. I can eject it, put it back in my camera. And now I have these saved to my desktop. And now which ones do I want to actually process? And I think my 2 favorites. See, I'd say this one's one of my favorites. And this one. It looks like he's drowning or something.
You didn't like that one? It's too.
Yeah, I guess I could do these 2. They match my sketches. There's something. I got to do all 3. There's something interesting about those. Okay, so those are the 3 I'm going to work with. This one's the odd man out. I don't like it as much as this. So that one I don't need to keep. So I'll move that one away. Okay, so now I need to set these up for processing. And the first step, I'll do it really quickly with this. We open it up in Photoshop. We make a duplicate. We first do basic levels adjustment, right? Remember, you don't want to overshoot your lights and start burning out. You just want to bring your triangles to the edge of your histogram and decide if you like it a little bit, the midtones a little bit brighter or a little bit darker. This is all on a copy. So that's the first distinction we made. Okay, next I'm going to make a duplicate of that, and we're going to use a new color tool called Channel Mixer. So we go to Image Adjustment, Channel Mixer. And now we're actually just looking at the white background, nothing else. And we're going to go through each channel, red, green, and blue. These are the lights that your computer uses to make all your colors. And you're going to leave the 100% alone. So for the red channel, red should stay at 100%. But you're going to just play with the other sliders back and forth. And what we're trying to get to is a neutral white or a neutral gray that doesn't feel like it has any color temperature at all. We're just looking at the background. Because if we can get the background to a neutral white, whoops, I don't want to play with the 100. Now I'm on the green layer. Then we know that the colors of our object are more likely to be true. And you'll play around with them. We're talking about little tiny adjustments make a big difference. And you'll find one, it's going to be the blue layer for me because it's such yellow light. That just seems like magic. Like that. So just by shifting the green slider in the blue channel, I'm able to mix it to kind of a neutral white background. And if I do anything else with the red, it starts to look like too much. If I go too far, it will go blue. Too far the other way, it goes yellow. So right about there. This is a more advanced version of the color balance tool. You know, where I can just shift the midtones. And I can try to mix the colors there, and I will eventually. But this one is actually much more accurate, and it doesn't affect the colors on my object nearly as much. It gives me kind of truer color. So that's called the